Today was a hard day as a youth pastor. It's one of those things we never want to see happen. Not for our community, not for our students. And people usually are looking at pastors and looking for the right thing to say, like we have all the answers, like we've got the perfect thing to say. I went to the prayer. They had the prayer ministry of Decatur County just put it out there like, hey, listen, we're going to meet at the middle school and pray at 12 o'clock. So we went. And there's several pastors and all that. And, you know, I think people look at pastors going, okay, how do you explain this? What's the perfect thing to say in this moment? And I'll be honest, there's usually no words that fix everything. Nothing can be said to just take away grief, take away the hurt. Tragedy usually never makes sense, especially when it's somebody so young. In the book of John, chapter 11, I'm just going to summarize it for the sake of time since we went a little longer in worship, and that's fine. Sometimes I'm really bad about shortening sermons, but tonight I don't feel the need to lay it out long. There's this man named Lazarus, and he's got two sisters, Mary and Martha. We usually hear about Mary and Martha because of the time where Mary sat at his feet, Martha was busy and all that thing. You know, we know that story. But they had a brother named Lazarus, and Lazarus was one of Jesus' friends. And they sent word ahead of time and said, Jesus, the one you love is sick. Now, I know you guys grow up and you guys have cell phones and iPhones and all that good stuff, right? Let me just tell you, there was a time before we had phones in our pocket that I remember I was on the edge right there, right? Where we had a house phone and there was no caller ID. The caller ID didn't link to your TV. The caller ID wasn't on the phone. Like, the phone was the phone, and when somebody called, it rang, and you just answered and said, hello. And that's how you figured out who was on the other side. Okay? And if you knew somebody well enough, you know, it was good when you said hello and they said, hey, and you just knew who it was. Right? That was our caller ID right there. There's one time I did a prank phone call and I thought I called my aunt's house, but I actually called somebody else's house. I have no idea whose house. And I played a whole prank on them. But there was a caller ID, so we didn't really worry about it at that point. But now, you know, we've gotten to this place where now it just shows on your screen who's calling. And we have that luxury. But in this time, you know, they didn't have that caller ID, so to speak. And so Jesus is told, you know, the one you love. You know, the one you know. The one that you have a relationship with. And Jesus, who is 100% God and 100% man, recognizes the situation at hand. And they said, listen, Lazarus is sick. And Jesus doesn't just go right ahead of it. Right? If you found out your friend was sick, or something happened to your friend, what would you do? Cry? You would drop everything to go to them, right? You would do everything in your power to get to your friend. I know I would. If they called me right now and said, listen, something happened to your mama. Listen, I'm walking out of here. I'm literally just going to lay the microphone down. I'm grabbing Miss Lindsay, I'm grabbing Jolie, and we're out of here. Y'all can figure out how to shut down and turn everything off by yourselves.
We can just cut it down.
Okay?
Cut everything down. Or just turn the breaker off right there.
You could do that. But if your best friend needs you, you go. You drop everything and go. But Jesus doesn't do that. Jesus stays behind for a few extra days. And all of a sudden, we have to realize something, that God's timing is not always the same as our timing. Okay, God's timing is not always our timing. See, he even says to his disciples, listen, Lazarus, he's going to be all right. He's going to make it through this. kind of seems like that comes to a screeching halt because all of a sudden they come and they say, listen, Lazarus is dead. Jesus delayed in going, and then by the time he finally gets there, they're like, oh, you know what, Jesus, he's dead. But Jesus has the power over death. He knew that Lazarus was going to die, but death would not win. He knew that he would raise Lazarus from the dead. He knew that breath would fill his friend's lungs again. Jesus knew the end of the story. He knew it. And so he gets there, and he's met by one of Lazarus' sisters. Martha comes up to him and she says, you know, I don't blame her in this. She's a little angry and frustrated. Y'all ever been angry and frustrated at Jesus before? I have been. It's okay. He can handle it. She's a little angry and frustrated because she knew that he could have came and healed Lazarus. She knew he could have. She believed. She had faith. But Jesus didn't show up in this moment. She was confused. She was angry. She lost someone she cared about. It's okay to be upset when somebody we know passes away. Several months ago, my grandmother had cancer. Went through all the chemo and radiation, all that stuff. Everything was good. Got a clear bill. A couple months later, all of a sudden it came back with the raging vengeance, and before long, she had passed away. It's easy in those moments to say, why, God? Why? Where were you? What happened? Something like happened yesterday. It's easy to say, why, God? How could you let this happen? And it's okay to hurt and to have pain. Romans chapter 12, verse 15 says, mourn with those who mourn. See, this is happening to us now. But it was also happening in this story. Mary and Martha were grieving. And they had people around them. They had support. They had people that were mourning with them. They had people that were grieving with them. And Jesus, he has power over everything. Even the grave. Martha finishes her statement. She's mad at Jesus. She vents it all out, and then this is how she finishes it. In verse 22 of chapter 11 of John, she says this, but even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask. Talk about faith. Martha shows so much faith in this moment because she says, listen, I'm mad at you, Jesus. You could have done something, but here's my faith because I know that you can do God will do give you whatever you ask. Sorry. Her brother's been dead for 4 days. Began to decay. His body started to stink. Listen, they didn't do everything like we do today. Like, bodies did not last. They wrap them up, throw them in a tomb. And the Jews believed after day 3, that was it. So we're on the 4th day now. Jesus shows up. But the key thing is Jesus grieved too. Jesus grieved too. You know, people have always told me through the years, and I'm sure you've heard it too, like, follow Jesus' example, or what would Jesus do, right? You've heard that saying before? In this situation, even though Jesus knew the outcome, he still cried over the loss of his friend. Jesus knew what was about to happen. He knew that he was about to just say, Lazarus, come forth, and he was about to walk out of that tomb. But Jesus still took time to mourn and to weep. You know, sometimes this verse is one of those joking verses because it's the shortest verse in the Bible. 2 words, Jesus wept. Like you just memorized the scripture, if you can say that. But to me, it is a comfort verse to know that Jesus weeps too. Jesus weeps with us. He sees us in our grief. He sees us in everything that we're going through, and he weeps with us. Then Mary, Lazarus' other sister, comes and she has the same interaction with Jesus as Martha did. And she said, Lord, if you would have only been here, he would not have died. But Jesus wept with him. There's something in tears. Our body produces tears for several different things. One, when your eyes are drying out, your body produces tears to rehydrate your eyes. There's also reflex tears, and that gets the bad stuff out of your eyes. If you maybe like when you're cutting an onion, y'all know that have you ever had an onion hit your eyes and all of a sudden you're like, ah, and your eyes start to water really bad and you can't see and all that stuff? Some of y'all ain't cooked. It's okay. Go home and just cut an onion in half and you'll just test it out, all right? But your body automatically produces something to try and block out bad stuff. But then there's also the tears of crying from emotion. And there's something in our tears that is a natural painkiller. It's called leucin and confalinin. We'll go with that. You can look it up if you're better at saying scientific words than me. But some scientists believe that this is the very part of the reason why we can feel better after crying for a really long period of time. Because there's something in our tears that naturally help us. God created this way. Tears are powerful. They communicate that you are deeply moved by something, whether positive or negative. And Jesus wept. There are ways that we can process grief too. Can you guys think of maybe just a couple ways? What are some healthy ways to grieve? What are some healthy ways to grieve? Y'all know?
No.
Nope. Alone.
Being alone? Okay. Yep. Some people. Time? Huh? Would you say depression? I mean, that can be part of grieving, yeah. Emotional support, yep.
Mechanism.
What?
Mechanism. I'm trying so get it out. Mechanism.
Mechanism?
Yeah, you gotta find healthy ones.
Healthy mechanism?
Yeah, like distractions, running.
Yeah, okay.
Food is not a good one.
Well, here's the key. Are you ready? There's no right or wrong way to process a loss. As long as you do what's not harming or endangering yourself or others, it's okay. Some people, they talk to a trusted mentor, counselor, parent. Some people journal. Some people listen to music. Some people sleep. Some people run. Some people cry. Some people read. Some people work out. Some people express themselves artistically. Some people are people and they want to be around people. Some people want to seclude themselves. There's no wrong way to grieve. Everybody grieves differently. There's no formula. Some people cry it off for a really long time. Some people don't cry at all. You have to find healthy ways to channel your emotions. Jesus grieves. Jesus grieves just like we do. He's God in the flesh. He felt the loss of his friend, and he processed that loss through crying. See, death was not a part of God's plan. In the beginning, when God created everything, that there was not supposed to be death. But by us disobeying God and eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, sin entered in the world, wickedness entered into the world, and death and therefore entered into the world. But Jesus died, and when he died and rose again, he paid the price over death, hell, and the grave. He said, those are my keys, and I've got them now. He says this in Revelation chapter 21, I will wipe away every tear from their eye, and there will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. All of these things will be gone forever. I'm making everything new. And then he talks about heaven a lot. Sorry, I'm trying to just skip over some stuff to save on time here. But I want to give you this hope. I want to end this on a positive note, okay? Death is painful. Grief can reappear again and again spontaneously for a long time. But we know Jesus, and he is offering us an eternity with him in heaven forever. And we just have to receive it. We just have to invite him in. Invite him into our grief. Invite him into our struggles. Invite him into what's going on. Some of you, this may have affected. Some of you, this may not have affected as much. Some of you know somebody who it affected. But in a way, it affects our whole community. It affects, and you may say, well, Pastor Thomas, I don't live in Decatur County. It still has an effect over our area when a young life is taken. And Jesus, at the end of this story, he says this. He says, remove the stone. And they started questioning him like, he's going to stink. We don't want to do that. He says, do it anyway. And he says, Lazarus, come forth. And all of a sudden, Lazarus breathes again. And he steps out of his tomb. And Jesus says, take off the grave clothes and let him go. Jesus could have easily came, healed Lazarus, and never had to deal with any of this. But Jesus didn't, because Jesus was teaching us that it's okay to grieve, that it's okay to weep, that it's okay to process. It's okay when we lose somebody. It's okay. And Jesus is for the brokenhearted. Jesus is for those who are hurting. I get the opportunity on Monday and Tuesday. I'm going to be at the middle school and just walking around and hanging out at lunch and maybe just in the hallways or whatever. Because during these times, people need hope. And our hope is found in him.